And I had a big learning curve, first contract, and just winging it.
I don't know if I told you, Colonel, like what, because I was just onboarding Steven for the first time, just met him yesterday, and he started talking about this contract. He made the mistake, and now he's just going to live with it and suck it up and learn from his mistakes. I'm like, hey, you really want to learn from your mistakes. We need to fix this shit now and see, hey, I bet there's some things you could do there. So I'm glad that you had a chance to look at it.
We talk a lot on this channel about selling to the government and winning the contracts, but the real work starts after you win the contract. In this video, what you're going to see is Steven. He's a student in our GovClose certification program who has won a contract with a federal agency. And he realized after he won it that he really didn't look at it hard enough. He's not making any profit on the contract, or at least not what he thought he was going to. He came in, he was like, hey, I'm kind of stuck with this. I made some mistakes and now I'm in your program, now I'm gonna learn. And of course, his contract is 1 year with multiple option years afterwards. He said, hold the phone. And this is for everybody watching. You are not stuck once you are on contract with the government. Life is a negotiation, just like your contract, even an existing one with the government. And there are certain things that you can do if you read the contract carefully in order to make sure that you're getting paid and that the government's getting what they want. Watch this episode with Steven and Colonel Orndorff, who is a former government contracting officer. He's been on the podcast and the YouTube channel a bunch, and you're going to learn probably more about negotiating your existing contract and actually how to increase the profit that your company's making than you probably ever have before. So this is gonna be a great episode. Watch till the end. By the way, leave comments in this video. I'm gonna pick one of the comments to do a free consulting call, and whether that's on YouTube or in the podcast. All right, let's get to it.
Colonel, what'd you find out?
Well, based on what you told me, Steven, do you go by Steve or Steven?
Fine, sir. Or whatever.
Okay. Well, so based on what you told me, and there's some limitations. The initial thought is, okay, well, you just signed up for something and it just turned out to be a lot more than you asked for. However, if you look at the details that you sent, I looked at the request for quote, I looked at your quote, and I looked at the contract. And specifically in the contract, I looked at the PWS. Because what I'm looking for is the drivers for the things that you said increase the amount of time that you're putting in place. The big driver is that there are rounds of acceptance to accept the training that you're providing. Nowhere in any of the contract documents does it say that there's an acceptance criteria. There's not even a criteria for what that acceptance would look like. So what you have now is any effort that you put in to meet a bar that was not defined is effectively out of scope. So the key on this one is the VA asked for a commercial off-the-shelf product, which you offered a commercial off-the-shelf product, but in your offer, you said, I'll do some tailoring for your specific scenarios within 20 days of contract award. So within 20 days of contract award, technically, whatever you put on the table that is COTS is by default accepted. There's no option for the VA to say, well, we like this more than we like that, or we want the color to be blue, or, do this or that, which apparently puts you into a little bit of a do loop to get it up to the point where they say, oh, we like this. Is that the way, am I understanding this correct?
You're off a little bit, sir, and only in the fact that we went round and round on the templating. So the tracking mechanism and the reporting, there was, hey, they did not provide they provided what they wanted to look in the PWS. I provided that. We prefer this and this, and then just went round and round with kind of the tailoring documentation. We are entering into this issue. So the VA asks for tailoring for each time that we deliver the product. So we're not delivering anything in February, but in January even, it was, hey, we want this course and we'll submit our customizations in time. But from what it sounds like is that 20-day window was from contract offering, not 20 days out from product offering.
Now, keep in mind, the RFQ had no such conversation about any customization whatsoever.
Right.
You are the one who opened up the door with your proposal that said, after contract award, within 20 days, I'll give you some tailored stuff, which ended contract award plus 20 days.
Okay.
So any tailoring or customization after that is what we're going to call out of scope.
That'll go.
Okay, so now this is the piece where which if I'm understanding correctly, it's not that you're unwilling to do this, but your original price that you put on the table didn't include that.
Yeah.
So that's the whole point here.
To the extent, I guess, that was where my assumptions were, granted, 296 hours, $80 an hour, pretty much where it was. And just the going back and forth of getting the templates accepted and through to a degree in which they have them was difficult. And the vendor, so my teaming partner, and when they look for customization, it was when we had our kickoff call, it was the customization that they are looking for is not anything in the course material. It is specifically limited in scope to be scenarios. So they want to use very specific VA given scenarios when they do it. So instead of saying, we're going to do, they call and it's a customer service thing. So they have an account issue. VA is not, that's not what this portion of the VA does. They handle patient care issues and access. And so they wanted to tailor those to the scenario down to that. And that's what we've been doing so far.
Well, what I'm seeing in the documentation is that they didn't ask for that. And I think this is where your real opportunity is. And to me, this is where we're going. Not going. This is my advice to you. Look, you offered something, you read their solicitation, they wanted commercial off the shelf, you offered something with some minor tailoring up front, and that was it. Now the government's saying we want tailoring more than what we asked for. So it's appropriate to go back to the contracting officer and say, hey, I'm happy to, this is my favorite thing, can do, send money. We're happy to do whatever it is you're asking us to do, send money. You want me to add layers of customization, can do, send money. So what we're leaning towards now is, as the government has awarded this contract and they've asked for something beyond what they originally requested, which you based your proposal on and your price, now we have to go back to the government and say, hey, I can give you what you're asking for at this point, but I need you to update the price that we've agreed to. So that is the point that we're going to now. And there's the structure of your contract is set up. It's purely a commercial contract. And it was written very clearly for a commercial off-the-shelf product. So when I go to Microsoft and I buy Microsoft Word, I don't sit there with Microsoft and say, hey, I need you to customize the software each time I use it. Microsoft would be happy to do that, but I would be paying for it significantly more than just a license to use it. In your case, it's the same thing. You sold them a commercial off-the-shelf product. You offered to do some minor modifications up front, and that was part of your offer, and you did that. So now what you want to do is identify, hey, government, each time I deliver this, you're asking for X. It is costing me Y. I'd like you to update the contract to include that amount for each of the areas of the contract.
Oh.
So a contract change at this point has to be bilateral. It means you both have to agree on it, but it has to be initiated in this case by you. And this is one of those where you're going to go back to the government, and the government may come back with two different courses. One, the contracting officer will say, yeah, we absolutely need this, and we're willing to pay more for it. Let's negotiate what more looks like. Or they'll come back and say, the person asking for this was out of line, and they're no longer allowed to ask for this. You will no longer be asked to do any DV customization or updates. So just deliver as requested. And so you have a couple of different branches of what will happen from here. So my advice to you is you send a letter to the contract officer. In this letter, you identify what you've already done that is above and beyond. And if you have an email trail from the government that says, I need this, you provide that as evidence to the contracting officer to say, I've been asked to do this. It was not part of the contract. Here's how much that cost me.
Gotcha.
You
We're
know,
lucky. Those made it to the meeting minutes, those requests. So,
which is perfect.
they're approved.
You have clear evidence that the government has directed you to do something that is not part of the contract.
Okay. Perfect.
So if they're in the meeting minutes and you say the government has asked for ABC, now you go back with those meeting minutes and say, contracting officer, the government asked for something that was not part of the contract agreement. You need to send a letter to the government. And the two parts of the letter is, here's what I've already done that costs more than I agreed to. And the second part is, here's what I'm being asked to do going forward that is more than I already agreed to. And then as part of that, you have to say, here's how much this cost for me to do what I already did beyond what I agreed to. And here's how much it's going to cost going forward. So then you send this to the contracting officer, and you definitely want a conversation. You do need to do this by letter in writing, and then follow up. And now it's a human, you're negotiating, right? Now it's the human touch. And you say, hey, I want to give you the best support. I want to do what you need. Can do send money, but I can't do it for free. This is significantly impacting my business. That's not what I agreed to. So let's get this right. Let's make this right. So the government will negotiate with you the amount that you say, here's how much I think it cost me up to this point. They may have you say, prove to them that it cost you that much in hours and rates and stuff like that. You're going to have to come up with some reason that you use that particular dollar amount. And then they'll either agree to it or they won't. Okay. So that's line of effort number one. And then going forward, they'll either tell you, hey, look, we're not going to do this. So your prices need to stay the same and we're not going to make any changes, but we're not going to ask you to do this anymore. Okay, that's good. That's an outcome, but you obviously, I don't know if the time put into this, if it's paid for is something you want, or if your time is stretched so thin that you can't really afford to do that, even if they paid for it. So you got to think about what is the outcome that you really want there. Normally, it looks like you've got some pre-canned training, and you're going to deliver it like 22 times, and it's a set amount. In this case, you might say, "Hey, if you up the set amount, then I can do this customization each time." So you have to decide what it is you want, and part of it might be, again, if you say, "I don't want to do this. I want to deliver the training for the set amount, and I don't want to customize it each time. I want you to stop asking me to do that." Put that in the letter. So there's that. But I mean, so my question is, what do you want? So rather than giving you scenarios left and right, what is it you want?
There's another thing that we did recently. And so on Contract Signature, there were 2 courses that my team partner did not offer at the time and have developed it since we've gone live. So I've proposed that, and having learned from my mistakes, added some margins into it to ensure that we can keep up with that inflation throughout the duration of the contract. But I think from the negotiation standpoint, it sounds like this is something else that I can add to sweeten the pot on that, to get maybe not both across, but one or the other.
Wait. I'm not understanding what it is you're saying. So you have a current contract to provide the training.
So in the contract, it lists the 12 or 13 different topics that I was looking for. 2 were not developed at the time and were outlined in the proposal that said, these 2 courses are not available. The government accepted it and went from there. And I believe we even put a caveat that said, are not available at this time, may look into course development in the future. And the government's like, fine, we understand this is not included. Recently, they developed that. We've completed that, turned it over to the government, or at least said, hey, we're done with development. If you guys want to start scheduling these courses, and select that, because they do it a la carte. So they have a max number that they can pick a year, and they're just go through and say, this month we want this and this. And next month we want
of the 15 topics that you
of the 15 topics. And so we delivered it too. And I haven't heard anything back, because we did increase the price from R&D perspective to recoup that costs.
So where in the contract did you increase the price?
I haven't. That's where it's going back to negotiation. So,
all right. So the unit price for item 2A and 2B is $4,000.
$4,000. But that
so
was,
are you saying
is already
like to increase that number?
So my question, I guess the ultimate question is, with those 2 new courses having an increased cost, I said, hey, we are unable to deliver these 2 courses at that agreed upon price. The ones we've developed after the fact.
Yeah. So what is the price that you think you can deliver those courses for?
$8,450 was the asking price, and that was due to the R&D that went into it. They're 2 completely new courses. And those
so $8,450 per offering?
Yes, sir.
So you more than doubled.
Yeah.
And how often? Okay, well, so here's where I'm going with this one. If you find a sweet spot where 2A and 2B, you put into 5,500, these would be included, you basically will level it out, right?
Yeah.
Or 6,000 if it takes for this customization. So you can't really tell the government. I mean, the 8450 is just a bad move on your part.
And that's where my teaming partner came in and they were like, this is what we need to get in order to make these courses work for us. And we bought these courses already. We're selling these at $10,000 currently. And that's why it's
Per time that it's used.
per time that it's used.
Okay. So the thing that this is where you have to do a little bit of a thinking about what you want to ask for from the government. So for example, CLIN 2A and 2B, and I'm looking at it on my screen, it's $4,000 right now per year. So what you can ask for is to increase that amount up to a number that will, even out your costs for the increased development of the final two modules and the increase of any customization that you're doing on a time-by-time basis.
That's what I was thinking.
So what would that number be? Have you done the math? Have you identified what you think the unit price would need to be?
I would have to go back to put them in there. What we were trying to do was price based. So it would be a, I don't know if you go 2A.1 and 2A.2 to add these two courses or how they would, if you can adjust the CLIN, I guess that's where.
Yeah, you can absolutely. So my advice to you is request to adjust the unit price for 2A and 2B. So there's 22. You don't know how many times they're going to do module 13 and 14 or 14 and 15.
Right.
They may do it once or twice. They may do it 22 times. So you have to just do a best guess of what the actual spread's going to be there. And so what you might do is, for example, go to the government and say, based on all these factors, I would like to increase the price for 2A and 2B to 5,500 or 6,000. And that's what you're asking for. And then you have that go to all the options as well. So throughout the entire contract, you want to update that price to 6,000, for example. But you have to do the math to see if the probability of the spread of because you don't want to do this twice.
They were highly requested. That was why when we
Pardon?
they were two highly requested portions. So it was strategic leadership and managing a remote workforce specifically. And they expressly asked during our kickoff meeting if we could develop that and then get a price back to them there. And I didn't speak to it. My team partner said, yeah, we're already in development of that and we'll let you know when it's done from a pricing perspective.
So the government has asked you to add these beyond what they asked for in the first place?
They asked if it was in production. So they were very strategic in how they did. They didn't expressly ask to have it produced. They asked if it was in production. And the answer.
And your offer was for 15 modules?
So it's each one. So they select which course and that course just uses one of the 22.
Exactly, right. So, but they can select from 15 different courses.
And so when they accepted our bid, the last two weren't on there. They were in production. So during our kickoff call, we think that there's going to be some good interest in it. And I can only assume that's why my team went so high with it.
Stephen, let me ask you this question. Is it your partner says they need $8,450 every time that is run?
Yes,
or just the first time and then
every time those two courses are ran to recoup their R&D, there's sunk cost already in that course development.
So I go, look, if the VA decided to run it 22 times, you'd have to pay your partner 22 times $8,400, right?
Yep.
So that seems like arbitrary. I don't think I'd go for that. If I was you, I would tell your partner, you need to define that a little bit more clearly. You can't just say every time this is run, it's going to cost this much, because you can't predict how many times it's going to be run.
Yep. That's what I'm learning, right? Learning this contract. When I was talking to Rick, I said, if there was something that could be done wrong with this contract, I did it. And I've learned from it, right? And so year over year increases when option years are exercised, there's no
escalation.
Yep. So there's none of that. There did put margins on anything for me. I'm strictly stuck to the project management piece of it. And so the rest of it's a push through cost. And so as we're just talking in my head, what I should do is find that common ground for all of them, request, hey, we're looking to add these two to it. whatever that amount looks like, and then let my team partner know.
All right. So I'm going to go back to, we're not really changing the approach here. You need to go to the government and say, government, based on these factors and some of the things you're talking about, we'd like to update the contract to include the elements of that. For example, CLIN number one is your program management. Because of all of the changes, that requires a lot more program management than you originally intended. So ask for a change in that price. And then for CLIN 2A and 2B, because of whatever the customization, additional revenue there, ask for an update in those prices. And I think that's the same with, would it be the same with CLIN 4? It looks like that's the same price. So your CLIN 2 and 4, update those prices accordingly. So the key on this one is you need to generate. So the letter, I'm going to give you a framework for the letter, but what I don't have is the actual facts of why does it cost, how much more does it cost, and why does it cost more? Because at this point, you've initiated a negotiation with the government. You guys have to do what's called a bilateral modification. You both are going to have to sign it. You both have to agree to this. So the key on this one is, unless the government changes this, you can say, I cannot offer you module 14 and 15. I can't do that. And I can no longer do any customization. So again, there's what have you done that's already cost more than the government's received more than they asked for, and you provided it, asked for that change. But going forward, we want to update the CLIN prices so that the government's getting a fair price for what you've asked for, and you're getting a fair amount for what you're providing. Does that make sense, Stephen?
Plenty.
So you have a couple of the things you ask for. It's all about cost, schedule, performance, right? So in your case, you want more money. You're going to deliver the same technical thing at the same time. So schedule and performance is not really what your trade space is. Your trade space is dollar amounts, right?
Yeah.
So the government could give you more time. The government could reduce the specification. The government can do, it's all about cost, schedule, performance is your trade space, but what you're asking for is money. So I think that's the kind of stuff, and you have some justifications for that. But the key is you have to build a table or some kind of evidence that says this is what the increased cost is and why. Again, for what you've already delivered and what you are going to deliver going forward.
Yeah, pretty good idea.
Does that make sense? So I generated a letter, and not knowing the pieces that we just talked about, I just plugged in, we're looking for a 10% increase. This is not the right answer, but it gives you a framework for you to go in and say, okay, look, I need two things, what I've already done and what I'm doing going forward.
I guess the assumption, like the common misconception then from all of this is, when on contract, it's a best faith effort to meet those expectations. However, once you get into work, you're not beholden to it if you're doing more and getting asked to do more along the way.
So these are firm fixed price, commercial off the shelf. Technically, you hand it to them and walk away.
I want to take a quick second to talk to anybody watching this that's interested in starting a government contracting business or starting a new profession in government contracting. Our GovClose certification program, which I'm super passionate about, is a rigorous training environment, not a course, a rigorous training environment that is teaching you the expertise of how to sell to the U.S. government. Now, this is based on my background as a former government procurement officer, the work I've done as an account executive and senior account executive selling for big companies, but even more importantly, everything I've learned running a very successful consulting firm and helping over 500 clients sell to the government. When you graduate from this program, and it will take a lot of work for you to graduate from this program, you will be able to talk to any business, analyze federal spending data, contract data that's publicly available, and build a step-by-step sales plan for that company. You'll be able to execute that sales plan, build a pipeline, find early leads, set up meetings with the government, build relationships, and most importantly, close contracts. The students that graduate our program, they go on to start their own consulting firms, winning high dollar consulting clients. They go on to land high paying salaried positions as account executives with companies that sell to the government. And by the way, even kids just out, I call them kids, right? But 20 somethings just out of college with no background in government contracting, they're beating out seasoned professionals. The last one that won a spot for a satellite company won out 50 other applicants because he was able to walk in there after going through our program, after the road mapping and analysis, the only one of all the applicants that could tell that company exactly how the government bought what they sold, the exact offices that bought what they sold, what contract vehicles those offices used, how much they spent, and how to reverse engineer a sales pipeline that could actually land those contracts. Being able to have that expertise talking to a company for a job or a CEO for a consulting position is immense, and very few people can do it. I'm so proud of the people that have gone through our program. And if you are considering either a job or a business, and by the way, some of our students are doing both, as I did. They're running a consulting business and they'll have an account executive job. It's transforming their lives. It's bringing true wealth to them and their families. Okay, back to the video.
So you should not have to do any basic management stuff, maybe, but you shouldn't have to do much more than that. So in the event that the government is asking for more, the way the contract and the changes doctrine is that you can then ask for more money or reduce tech cost schedule performance trade-off. If the government's asking for more, then you can do a trade-off. So especially if it's a commercial item for a COTS product. So the second the government started asking you for more, they opened the door. And if you didn't say, that's not part of what we signed up for, then you are now along for the ride. But it doesn't mean you can't ask for more money. It doesn't mean just because you did it, that you no longer have any right to ask for a compensation for that. Now it's negotiable. So you can't just say, I need $10,000. And you have to say, here's why, here's my rationale, here's my justification. The government has to make a decision that it's a fair and reasonable rationale and justification, and that the amount is appropriate. So the contracting officer is going to make a determination that this is what a reasonable person would actually agree to. And in the event, so let me just walk this whole thing all the way through. All right. We talked about protest. This is a commercial item. You've provided a commercial product or service under a commercial contract with 52212-4 and -5. In 52212-4, paragraph C, it's called changes. All changes have to be agreed to by both parties. And in part D, there's it's disputes. In the event that you don't agree, there's a very formal process that you go through to resolve the disagreement of what you should get and what is going on there. So if the government comes back and says, hey, we looked at your rationale, we think this is the right number, you might say, I'm okay with that. Let's go with that. Or you might say, no, I adamantly need 10,000 and there's nothing else I will accept. And so you come to an impasse. The disputes part of the commercial clause will then take place. Then that's when you say, okay, we need to resolve this under disputes, the disputes portion of the contract. And then it will go through, again, it's a very formalized process. But you want to avoid that. You want to actually be able to come to a meeting of the minds of what the appropriate numbers are in all cases. So sometimes people ask for something completely just unreasonable, just to see if they can get it. My advice to you is don't do that. Don't set it up for a fight, because then you're going to spend all your time doing that. Ask for something that's reasonable. Ask for something that is appropriate for what you're providing, and make sure that make it easy for the government to say, okay, well, we don't like this because you're asking for more money. However, we understand, and we will either stop asking for this or we will give you money if we're going to ask for it. So you have in your contract, it's completely structured for you to be able to go back and ask for more money based on them asking for more than what you've offered.
Okay.
So you have the legal framework to do exactly this. And I've written up some stuff. I'm going to send it to you so you can like dissect it and pull it. And there's some elements there. I had to make some assumptions. So you'll have to update that based on what you've told me.
Yes, sir.
So to me, I think you're in good shape, because the simple fact is they asked for X, you quoted X plus a little bit of Y, and then they came back and wanted X plus a lot of Y. So, and you have documented evidence through meeting minutes that they asked for way more than what you offered.
So do I just wait? I guess this is more the strategy of it. February, we already know we're not going to have any training. So we're going to get our programming courses. Do I wait for them to discuss customization or not?
No, it's already done. You've already got it. It's already happened.
Okay.
So you basically go and say, in order for me to support what you're looking for going forward, let's make this right. And again, these are key words. I'm saying key words for you. If you're saying to the government, in order for me to do this extra that you're asking for, let's make it right. Let's make the contract reflect what you're asking for. Let's update the contract appropriately. So these words are buzzwords for contracting officers. And you've asked for more than I offered is a really like tagline. And I'm okay with that, but I need to make sure that pricing reflects it. So there's nothing wrong with this. Is normal. This goes back to the first contract ever written. I'm sure of it. And it applies to every single contract between here and there. So it's not a bad thing. It's like, I mean, I have a contract with my son about helping me fix the car. The second we shake hands, we're already negotiating changes.
Yeah.
Like, I thought I would be available at this time, but I'm not. Okay, so roger that. Cost, schedule, performance. Let's renegotiate. The second one of those things is changed, then you have a trade space. This is okay and it's normal. It's actually built into the terms and conditions of your contract. So,
And do I reach up to my core with that,
No.
or I go directly to the KO? Because my core does, and I guess that's where my confusion with them is. My core approves my invoices, so any contract changes I know would come through the KO, but I guess where I go straight to.
yeah. So this is a strategy. All right. So the first thing, the core has absolutely no authority other than what the contracting officer has said. Hey, you can just verify performance, which is signing your invoices. That's it. Your core ultimately is the one who requires the service, and they can verify that the service was received. That's all they can do. Any changes to the contract to cost, schedule, performance have to go through the contracting officer. Now, the money has to come from the core. The core is going to have to go find all the money. So there's a little bit of a game that you can play here. The pure technical answer here is only the contracting officer would be the conversation. The strategic diplomatic conversation is that you go to the core and say, hey man, I'm really enjoying delivering all this stuff and this, but there's some extra pieces here. It's costing me more than I thought because of some of this stuff you're asking for. And I want to support that. So I'm going to go through the contracting officer and see if we can change the prices to make up for that. So you do a diplomatic move with the core to just tell them, but you actually must go to the contracting officer.
Okay.
The problem is the core might try to talk you out of it because technically the core is asking you to do something that the contracting officer didn't authorize the core to ask them to do. So the core could get in trouble and there could be like ratifications and there's
I think it's
also
interpretation, that 20-day mark. I think they're interpreting it as 20 days before.
So what you need to do is go back and say, that's an inappropriate interpretation. And let me tell you what I intended.
Gotcha.
So I put the offer on the table. This is what I meant when I said that.
Gotcha.
And however, you're now taking advantage of that for every single course. I can't do that.
I can for dollars.
Well, for a price, right? I can do that for a price. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for picking that up. Yeah, can do send money.
They send money.
So, and that's what we want to do is we just want to make this right. We want to make it appropriate. We want to adjust things so that the actual what you're offering is you're getting fair compensation and the government's paying a fair price for what they're getting. So at the end of the day, that is what we're trying to right size because it's gotten lopsided, right? The government's getting more than what they are paying for.
Yeah.
And so now we want to bring it back to the middle and say, hey, let's make sure that it's fair for both sides.
Okay. Perfect. I just-
So my advice to you is send a letter to the contracting officer. You decide the diplomacy of talking to the Corps, right? But you must send a letter to the contracting officer, not through the Corps, to the contracting officer.
Yeah.
You can copy the Corps if you want. That's all part of the diplomacy, but you don't have to.
Yeah, she's been pretty good to us. She's helped me along the way, and
Is she aware that you're putting a lot more into this than you intended?
we've had that conversation. So the conversation was, hey, I'm putting a lot of time. I have a lot of block time to get these templates done. I'm not getting any feedback. And she's like, I've escalated it for my people to get more feedback and to get the client engaged more so we can get moving appropriately. And eventually we got there, but we had some pretty tough times. And I had a big learning curve, first contract, and just winging it. So.
But hey, you don't have to accept
honestly,
it, right? That's what I was getting at. I mean, like, I don't know if I told you, Colonel, like what, because I was just onboarding Steven for the first time, just met him yesterday, and he started talking about this contract, like, hey, he made the mistake and now he's just going to live with it and suck it up and learn from his mistakes. I'm like, hey, you really want to learn from your mistakes. We need to fix this shit now and see, hey, I bet there's some things you could do there. So I'm glad that you had a chance to look at it.
Oh, sorry.
You're distracted. You must be looking at your bank account.
No. So, Stephen, honestly, I would love to know if you send this letter, what the results are. Let me know. You're not stuck. It's an old thing with the contract, offer and acceptance. When one of those things change, you go and you update the terms of the contract. It's pretty straightforward.
Now, is there anything to do as far as an escalation year over year, option year execution?
Yes.
So that was the other half is
I'm going to jump right on that one. The minimum that you want to escalate is
The GovClose certification is generating tremendous results. So 27 years old, you've never worked in government contracting, you've never worked as a consultant, and you just closed your first deal. Is that correct?
That's fair. And I've got a couple small projects on the side as well. So definitely probably my best investment I've made all year.
It would be my second post on how a cold call landed a 9-figure government contract. My name's Gavin Tice.
So my name is Ethan Mart. When I was able to enroll into the GovClose program, it just exceeded all my expectations. It really has provided a lot of valuable learnings and insights that I would not have found on my own.
I was able to get a consulting gig with a software company that currently works with the intelligence community. Hi, I'm Deb Diller Harris.
If you want to learn how to sell to the government, if you want to learn how to start your own consulting business, if you want to learn the skills that you need to go land a 6-figure plus account executive job with big companies selling to the government, the certification program is for you. Head on over to govclose.com, check out our certification program, talk to the team. You won't regret it.
the CPI, Consumer Price Index, which is right out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's been running right around 2 to 3%. It was up at 4% for a while. The standard that the government accepts is like 2.5. And you can just say, hey, based on the, this, I would also like to escalate my options at 2.5% per year on the out years.
Yeah, I was gonna ask for 3 just to cover, just to hedge inflation, not necessarily get away from it, but to hedge it.
Well, remember, it's a negotiable point.
Yeah.
I know from my experience that the government wants to drive that number down. Contractors want to drive that number up and, use it as a place to kind of park some extra capital if things go well. It's not really what it's meant for. So if you want to hedge your numbers, you can just flat out say, I want to escalate this by 15% every year for no reason other than I just want to do that.
I'm learning so much. I thought I was looking at profit margins in the 15% range, and I started doing a lot of market research, finding out some of my competitors in the 40% range after their G&A, after their labor costs, everything like that. And so I'm I was in a different game than they were. Now I think we're playing on the same game. And I mean,
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to be said for this one. This is not a bad one. It's like the total contract value is, what is it, about 194,000. It's a good one to cut your teeth on. You're not gonna lose too much. You're not gonna gain too much, but you're gonna learn a lot.
I-
I wouldn't play around with the escalation to be
Okay.
a place to get healthy by putting your prices right.
Yep.
And don't try to get too healthy on this one. What you want to do on this one is just get to the point where you're just making it that it's not, but don't try to get more than that. Next time you can throw in the 40% and maybe you'll win on price or not. But keep in mind, those people who are throwing 40% in there, they're not price competitive. So if you're in a price fight, then people are not making 40%. They're making 8, but they're also getting the contract and everything's paid for. Their overhead, their G&A, their company operating expenses. Sometimes companies will say, I need 4% because that just keeps my doors open. And I don't really need the profit. I just need the operating funds. So companies make decisions for different reasons.
Yeah, I didn't know there was still ongoing negotiating opportunities after that. I thought I was stuck. I
No.
accepted it, right? Up until yesterday, we were like, absolutely not. We're fixing that. I was like,
Yeah,
wait,
no, the second the government changes what they asked for, the negotiations begin.
gotcha. Perfect.
So
Yeah.
I
Gotta let the core know. First, I'm just gonna give her a heads up because she has been saying, hey, we're doing this. I'm gonna send it off to the KO and let her know from there.
yeah,
else
so
I'd
I
like
think
to-
go ahead, Rick.
Sorry, I just want to say, hey, one other thing that I don't think I brought up yesterday is obviously do everything very friendly with them, right? And because I mean, look, you could use that one relationship to win a lot of other work that's worth a lot more. For instance, when I was in the seat selling it was software, but I guess that's what you're doing here. But you're program management services, if I remember correctly, is what you're
Program project, and I really want to get into fraction bit. The other thing that happened is they awarded this on the 29th of September. So I got a CPARS for one day.
Was it good?
It was, I got it. We didn't do anything. I had to fill it out. I got I mean, it can't be bad. There was nothing they could do. Like,
If you ever do get a bad one, by the way, we had a project with a client where they got it wasn't like a super terrible, but they were getting great ones. And then like they got downgraded. Like you can go back on the CPARs too. Just keep in the back of your mind if you ever see a bad one. But you can use this one relationship, is what I was going to say, is like, hey, when you start getting past this, just ask the core people you're working with over there, like occasionally, hey, who is, like, we're offering PM services, actually our core. Is there somebody, do you guys know somebody that's looking for that? Or do you guys looking for it? Like asking those questions, you never know. And it might not be a yes right away, but every contract I won from MarkLogic was done just by doing that, just working with their existing customers, letting them know about the other things we had.
and I had to get everything squared away. Well, yeah, that learning curve was steep and came fast. So now that we're good, I'm learning a lot more and keeping things wrong.
It's good stuff, man. Good. Well, sounds like everybody wins on this call.
Hopefully.
Well, Stephen, do you have any other questions? I'm trying to send you the file right now, but any other question? I mean, did we answer your question?
No, that was it. I mean,
What you're looking for?
we have a way ahead, right? We have the rationale behind it, way forward, and the strategy behind it. And then for me, I like the decision points of like, you got to play it cautious. Like I understand the cat mouse game of succeed a little, lose the battle, win the war kind of thing. I try and stay away from military references. And since I've gotten out, because a lot of they get overused so much.
You should double down, man.
Oh, I hate it. I've always found that most people that do it never went to war. And so I was just like,
Well,
a little bit more.
That's
You know,
fair.
if you've never seen the worst of mankind, then you can use it a lot more. And I was a nurse when I did deploy, and we saw the worst of the worst. And it was
Mm.
not,
No,
I just try-
but you know what? I think it's a little bit cleaner from where you're at right now, right? So I'll tell you. Well, I was going to say like, hey, I think we're all glad we're sitting where we are, but Colonel Orndorff keeps going back to like Somalia and the Middle East and all over the damn place. I'm like, why are you doing this? It's like, I just can't stop. I love it.
hey, once you start traveling, I want to get my kids overseas for a year so they can experience. I did 3 years in Germany when my dad was in. I never went Oconus when I was in, and I just feel like they need to experience that.
Yeah.
Once you
That I agree with.
travel internationally, it's so much fun. So I don't blame you, Colonel O.
Well, I spend an awful lot of time still in the sandy, dark, hot places where people want to do bad things. So
Yeah, traveling's one thing, but where you're going, that's the shit that I don't ever want to see again.
Well, but you said you're in the Midwest, right? Like Oregon, Washington State.
I'm in Oregon. Yeah.
I would want to get out of there too.
Oh, no. This place is gorgeous. This is not about me trying to get out of here. It's more about there's interesting things to do in bad places. So I'm still doing interest. Hey, let me shift gears a little bit. I'm going to send this document. Rick, you're on the message. When you put together your letter to the contracting officer, if you'd like me to look at it, please shoot it over. I'll do a quick review, any track changes, comments that I have for it. But you get the idea of what we're trying to do. And I'm happy to look at that for you. I think this is an interesting challenge that you've got. It's going to be just a matter of how well you can put in a compelling argument that you need those two things. And yeah, so there you go. All right. So, and let's see if I can get that done. All right. So Stephen, I just hit send. So you should be receiving something shortly. And Rick, this is just very quickly put together. So I tried to capture a little bit of the details. And I think it's updated based on this, but there you have it.
Okay. No, good stuff. I mean, even if you didn't send that, like, I would be happy with the path forward here. So
Right.
let's make it work.
Got it. I'll get this out to you by Monday. You'll have it in your email box when you wake up on Monday. I finish it Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah. So I usually I try to have a empty inbox, so I'll get stuff back to you as quickly as I can. I'm traveling Monday, but I'll watch for it, and there you go. Seriously, good luck with this, and I do want to know how it goes.
We have our monthly project meeting first Monday, so it's Monday. So I'll see what happens there and update accordingly.
Yeah, and I think your narrative is, hey, we want to support.
Yeah.
Can do send money.
Can do send money.
Good tattoo.
All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Rick, is that it? Are we done?
Yeah. No, we're done.
Thank you,
Thanks,
gentlemen.
sir. Appreciate it.
Gentlemen. Have a great day.
Steven, take care. Have a good weekend.
Y'all take care.